All right, let's jump right in. We're going to look at an incredible story, one that's told entirely through data, about a huge language shift happening in Ukraine.
So, this number right here, negative 11%. This is really the core of what we're talking about today. It's the drop, the percentage point drop in people in Ukraine using Russian as their main language. And this all happened in just 5 years. That's not just a small change, it's a huge signal of something profound and incredibly fast-moving.
So you have to ask, right? How does a country's everyday language change that quickly? I mean, we're not talking about some slow, gradual shift over generations. The data shows this was deliberate, it was fast, and some experts are even calling it one of the most rapid cultural transformations in modern European history. It's pretty wild.
Okay, first up, let's get into the numbers. We'll look at the before and after, comparing 2017 to 2022, to really see what this shift looks like.
And wow, here's the core data right here. The change is, well, it's stark. Look at 2017. Just under half the population used Ukrainian as their main language. Fast forward to 2022, and that number jumps to almost 58%. Now look at the other side. Primary Russian speakers, they go from over a quarter of the population down to less than 15%. This is way more than just numbers on a page. This is like the data signature of a nation completely redefining itself, and it's happening right before our eyes.
And that surge in Ukrainian speakers, it's not just a little bump, it's a huge, decisive move. It really cements Ukrainian as the clear #1 language for a solid majority of people there.
And of course, here's the flip side of that coin, the huge drop in people primarily using Russian. I mean, an 11 percentage point fall in just 5 years? That's a massive event for anyone who studies how societies use language. It's just dramatic.
Okay, so if we drill down a bit into the 2022 data, you see even more detail. Get this, 41% of people spoke only Ukrainian. Another 17% used it most of the time. Now compare that to the other side. Just 6% used Russian exclusively. You add it all up, and this breakdown just shows how completely Ukrainian has taken over as the language of everyday life.
But believe it or not, the story gets even more intense when we start looking at specific regions. See, this shift wasn't happening the same way everywhere, especially not in places that have a long, long history of speaking Russian.
Yeah, the really big story here is what happened in the East and the South. These were areas everyone thought of as, strongholds for the Russian language, but the data shows something else entirely, a complete reshaping of the linguistic map.
I mean, just look at these numbers. In the Southeast, the number of people using Russian as their main language was basically cut in half. Think about that. In 2017, a little over half the people there were primarily Russian speakers. By 2022, that number just cratered to about 27%. That's not a shift, that's a seismic event.
And so this is what you get. The data literally redrew the language map of the whole country. It just shattered these long-held beliefs about regional identity. The numbers make it super clear. This was a conscious choice, and it was being made by millions of people all at once.
So what caused all this? What was the spark that lit this fire? The data gives us some pretty clear clues about the key moments and what was motivating people.
Okay, so researchers see this trend starting way back in 2014. Then in 2019, a new law came in to protect and promote the Ukrainian language, which helped things along. But every source agrees on one thing. The full-scale invasion in February 2022 was like pouring gasoline on the fire. It was the massive accelerator that caused the huge shift we're seeing in all this data.
So, why did individual people actually make the switch? Well, the reasons they gave in studies were super personal and also very political. For a lot of them, it was an act of patriotism, right? A way to show who they are, a symbol of their national identity. It was a very conscious choice to create distance from a Russian identity. And for many, their language choice even became a kind of weapon in the conflict, and a way to reclaim their own cultural heritage.
And this brings us to a really fascinating final point, because these stats, they aren't just about which words people are choosing to speak, they show a much deeper change, a change in the meaning and the emotional power of the language itself. This is so interesting. A study actually looked into what words people now associate with the very idea of language. And when they were asked for the first word that popped into their head, you know what they said? After the obvious ones like Ukrainian and native, the most common answers were weapon, freedom, nation, and border. That tells you everything about what's happening under the surface. The Ukrainian language has been totally redefined. It's become a tool for resistance and a powerful symbol of their sovereignty.
And that's exactly why experts aren't just calling this a statistical blip. They're framing it as a major, historic, cultural event. Honestly,
To see a whole country's main language change this much, this fast, it's just incredibly rare. The speed and the sheer scale of this shift are pretty much unprecedented in modern history.
So in the end, yeah, the numbers show us what happened. But the story they tell leaves us with this really powerful question, about how deeply connected language, identity, and even national survival are. The data really proves that a language can be so much more than just a way to talk. It can become a border, it can become a shield, and it can become the absolute voice of a nation.